right, let's see. All right, recording. Welcome, welcome, welcome to today's training. We're going to be talking about the five-step follow-up here. Let's move on. So let's talk about the why. When it comes to following up, it's important to understand that the system is there because not only is it duplicatable, but it's also proven. And when it comes to following up, we have to understand the numbers. 75% of the businesses that we're presenting to are not being closed. So that leaves a lot of opportunity for us to keep going back to certain opportunities to find out what is the underlying objection that we're dealing with. So something to understand with the follow-up is we follow up because there's 75% of the presentations that we're giving that are not closing. Now, it could be a number of reasons why, but that's why we've got to go back, and the five-step follow-up allows you to be able to find the real objection. So the other number to really keep in mind is that 70% of DMs that we are of the businesses that we're walking into, DMs we haven't seen them, right? Or we haven't converted them, excuse me, right? 67 to 70% of the time, we're not converting decision makers. And so that leaves a lot of opportunity left in the field to be able to go back to and create opportunity. So for the last several months, we've really been honing in on several different layers or lead types. We've talked about the hot leads, the warm leads, the presentations not closed opportunities, the scheduled follow-ups. So these are all opportunities that are critical, but it's important to have a process on how to approach those to get them to move through the sales process. And then one of the most important things to take from this is that 80% of our closed cases have all been from follow-up opportunities. Now, why is it important for you to understand the numbers? Because the logic makes sense. So taking a look at what the statistics show across the nation, this is according to the National Sales Executive Association, 48% of people never follow up with a prospect. 25% of salespeople make a second contact and stop. Only 12% of salespeople ever make 3 contacts and stop from there. And this one was what blew my mind is that only 10% of sales professionals make more than 3 contacts. I was just on a conversation the other day, actually earlier with a general agent, and he actually told me that he closed a case on a Saturday. Shout out to James Lamp. So great job there. But he closed the case on a Saturday. And one of the things he told me was that he was in that business 4 times. Think about that. It was a follow-up opportunity that he'd been in there 4 times that led him to closing that case. Now, only 2% of sales are made on the first contact. 3% are made on the second. 5% are made on the third. 10% are made on the fourth. And 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact. You have to understand these numbers in order for the follow-up to make sense, because a lot of the times when people are going into this for the first time or learning about this path to success, they have to have a mindset of being able to build a pipeline and effectively utilizing the CRM to set up a follow-up strategy to create opportunities for themselves. And so with those numbers and those statistics in mind, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing the 5-step follow-up with you. But a couple of things to really expect going down this path. Understand the follow-up is something that is the next phase of prospecting. It's the next phase of closing cases, right? The first phase is really walking in and getting an appointment set, or, doing meeting a DM for the first time. But the next phase is, okay, now that you've done all those things, how do you keep prospecting in that second phase to create opportunity from relationships you've built in the past? So when you're going through this process, you've got to know what to expect. And the first thing is that follow-ups will create or will require critical thinking to happen. It's not just something you can go in and wing. You've got to go in prepared. And I'm going to talk about a couple of best practices here in a couple of slides that is going to help you have the advantage going into every single follow-up to create that next level of the sales process. The other thing is, you have to understand that following up is the next phase of the prospecting process. You're going to make mistakes. You're gonna fail sometimes. You're gonna make mistakes along the way to mastery, and it's okay. Please manage your expectations and understand that you're going to make mistakes, and that's a good thing, right? You hear about all these interviews of professionals that are going into new things and became extremely successful, and one of the first things they talk about is fail forward, fail often. It happens, right? you've got to be able to know that that's something that along the path of mastery, you're going to run into these things. So we're going to talk about how to be able to make sure you're mitigating that. And then lastly, what to expect when following up. The fortune is in the follow-up, baby. I know Christina Singletary's team, that's something they preach on a regular basis. It's the fortune is in the follow-up, right? So making sure that you're not only logging your walk-ins accordingly, right? Lead disposition is important. You're utilizing your layers. You're utilizing 4-week forecast to strategize what opportunities do I have to go in and attack this week to create my next opportunity. So now that you've got those pieces of the process in place, then the 5-step follow-up starts to come into play. And what are those 5 steps? But before I do that, I got to talk mindset. An objection is not rejection, but simply a request for more information. I'm going to say that again. An objection is not rejection, but it's simply a request for more information. I'm not interested, right? What does that mean? Tell me more information, right? That's a request for more information as to why I should be interested, right? These are things that, with the right mindset, you go in with an approach and you're able to pivot and handle that objection accordingly, or come back on a second or third or fourth visit with the 5-step follow-up to create the opportunity to keep moving forward. So let's talk about the 5 steps. Step number 1, you've got to build rapport. The first step of any buying process is going to be trust. So having that rapport as your front, as your spearhead into building on the 5-step follow-up will always work wonders. So make sure you're building rapport. We're going to talk about a couple of key points on building rapport. The second step is you must reestablish value. Too many times we have people going in and say, hey, John, I was wanting to come back in and follow up with you. See if you had any questions, right? What kind of value is in that approach? There's not a whole lot other than the fact that you're coming in to reconnect, right? Or you're coming back in a second time, right? By showing that you're willing to come back a second time or a third time, that shows that you have credibility. That shows that you have conviction behind what you're doing. And so having that reestablishment of value in your follow-up creates that curiosity. It creates that level of emotion that makes that process move forward. The third step is number 1, you've got to make sure that you're isolating and handling the previous objection. You're isolating and handling the previous objection. What does that tell a decision maker? That tells them that you were listening. You were listening to what they said, and that you not only listened, but that objection or that rebuttal that you handled is not really something that is going to get in the way of bringing what we have and worth of value to the table. Number 4, tie down. You've got to have a tie down, baby. You got to get that process tied down in order to move on to the next section of the process. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then my last step here is while using the 5-step follow-up, we were able to uncover what the real objection was. You know what? It's not that I'm not interested. It's, we've tried doing this and it just doesn't work out, or we've tried doing this and the employees just aren't interested. We've got to know what the real objection is. And typically the first objection is typically the cover, right? It's just there to get you out the door. It's not the right or the real objection that they're dealing with. It's the quickest response that they can get out to you without having to take too much time. So by going back a second time, you're going to be able to find that real objection. So let's talk about rapport for a second. All right. We always lean on rapport, right? Because number 1, a lot of these business owners are emotionally intelligent, right? They love someone that they can have a conversation with that is not only, has their best interest at heart, but again, likability and trust is so essential in anything. And so making sure you've got that first is so important. The first thing you need to do is always review your journal notes, okay? You never know what you're going to find. This is the biggest reason why whenever we're coaching and training everybody, you don't be afraid to put some descriptive notes in your details that will allow for you to be able to come back in and reignite what it was that really made that connection in the first or second visit. So make sure you're staying up to date with your notes, and please be disciplined and give yourself put yourself in a position to win in this particular step of the process by being specific on everything that you get in that walk-in. It's going to help you tremendously. The second piece is you want to utilize the FORM method: family, occupation, recreation, and me. What does that mean? These are all categories that allow you to be able to spark up a great conversation with a business owner that again connects them with you and is more likely to influence the business owner to move through the process of what it is that we bring to the table. The other very important, vital piece of building rapport on a follow up is make sure you're starting the conversation assuming that they remember you. Start the conversation assuming they remember you. One of the worst ways to shoot yourself in the foot is addressing the conversation first and foremost by saying, "Hey, John, I don't know if you remember me or not." Ooh, God, come on, guys. You're pretty much telling them that you didn't do your job, right? Assuming them, assuming that they remembered you is a great way to be able to show confidence. That's number one. I love to show confidence. So by me walking back in and saying, "Hey, Brian, hey, my man, it's good to see you again. What's new and good with you? What'd you do over the weekend?" Awesome, man. Well, listen, it's great to see you once again. I was coming back to reconnect. I know we had sat down and boom, 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 boom. I'm going to go straight into the reestablishing of value, but I need to make sure that my rapport building is assuming that they remember me so that psychologically and emotionally, these business owners know that I'm confident, that I valued their time, that I listened, and that I have a solid, strong interest in really building that relationship with this owner. Super, super important. So now that we understand step one, let's move into step two. This is where a lot of the fuel starts to really blow up, right? So you did a great job with the rapport, but what's next? You got to reestablish value. Okay. People love value. So how do you do that? Number one, you need to make sure you have great transitions into this part of the process. All right. So I can give you my own. Okay. I can tell you what my transitions are, but it's always best to have your transition that fits in that area. But I'm going to go over what that looks like for me in just a moment. But to really elaborate on the transitions, this is what makes it a conversation. All right. This is what makes it a conversation. It's the transitions in between that make it more natural, and it allows them to really connect while they're hearing you speak. So your transitions are key. I love to use terms like reconnect or refresh or something of that nature. You have to have terminology or verbiage that is, how do I say this? It's revitalizing, right? Reconnect. I wanted to come back and refresh with you, John, or I wanted to come back and reconnect. I wanted to come back and review. I wanted to come back in and again, there's a lot of synonyms that I can give you, but the biggest one that I use that I would recommend is reconnect. It's a great term. It's connecting. It has the term vocabulary. There was actually a training that was done by a gentleman by the name of Patrick Bet David. I don't know if you all know him. Great entrepreneur, super successful, and he talked about vocabulary and how important that was in his success in his career. And I think that plays a big part in what we do, having the fact that we deal with people on a regular basis. So just make sure you're utilizing solid vocabulary that communicates confidence, revitalization, reinvigoration. I mean, just all the things that bring life to your delivery. Okay. The next thing that I want you to do is I want you to not use the word follow up, right? Refrain from using that F word, right? That's like a bad word in what we do. Okay. It's not only is it overly used, but it's something that really doesn't trigger any kind of value, right? I'm just coming in to follow up with you on that sense. Hey, John, I wanted to come back and reconnect with you, or I wanted to come back and revisit a couple of valuable items that you and I had discussed after sitting down and going over the presentation. I know you did. I remember you did tell me one, two, three, four, five, right? It's the transition into the reestablishing of the value is such an important pivot to creating that curiosity or that emotional effect when bringing back that value. So make sure you're not only getting that transition down using words like reconnect or refresh, make sure you're also not using the word follow up to really get to this point, okay? And then one of the things that you want to do when reestablishing the value is you want to have not only a solid transition into it, but your delivery has to have vocabulary like reconnect and address whatever part of the process you were in. So to give you an example of this is, "Hey Brian, good to see you, my man. What's new and good over there with you?" Awesome, man. Listen, I know the last time we had the opportunity to connect, I'd let you know that I specialized in helping employers like yourself provide some unique, valuable benefits to their employees. while creating a tax savings for the company at absolutely no cost whatsoever to the business. However, your concern at the time was that you didn't think your employees weren't interested. And after giving it some thought, I completely understand you feeling that way, Brian. As a matter of fact, I've had other clients who have had similar experiences. But I had a quick question for you, my man, after giving it some thought. If we were to find that your employees did have interest, would you be willing to take a look at the ways that we can help them? Man, you know what? Okay, great. Well, I'll tell you what. Give me just a few minutes to go over it with you, my man, and I'll show you the best way to determine if there's any interest. May we step into your office? Right? So that is going to be your transition into the not only your rapport, right? Boom, boom, boom. But my transition is, hey, I wanted to come back and reconnect with you because I know the last time we had the opportunity to connect, we sat down or I went into my 30-second commercial for that demonstration right there, right? I gave Brian my 30-second in the last visit. This next visit, I just repeated or reiterated my 30-second. Okay. You've got to reestablish the value that way. Okay. So, and then lastly, when it comes to reestablishing value, you've got to be aware of your vocal image, right? Your tone and delivery are a major component in this part of the process. You've got to show conviction and confidence. Okay. And a lot of this is going to stem from making sure that not only do you understand the scripting, do you understand the punctuation, do you understand the different tonality that you want to apply in this part of the process. So reestablishing the value is essential when you're going in for the follow-up. And then lastly, use scripts, right? You don't have to reinvent the wheel and say some things that are way left to right field. Just stick to the scripts. It's going to help you out tremendously, and you're going to get the results using them. Moving on. Step number 3, you've got to isolate and crush the previous objection. It's got to happen, right? Because normally the original objection is just something to get you out, right? They have something more busy. I mean, something more important at the moment. So they're going to give you the easiest thing. And that's going to be, you know what? I'm not interested. Send me an email. I don't have time, whatever that may be, but you've got to handle it. So a couple of things you want to remember is that the key to this is to notate, like I mentioned, solid notes that include the specific objection that you must address, right? That's something that again, in order for the 5-step follow-up to work, you've got to make sure that when you're getting back in your car after a walk-in that you met a DM and they gave you some objections, document them and make them specific according to the objection or the rebuttals that we normally use so that when you're going into your preparation, you have that so you can role play the 5-step follow-up before going in. Something that I utilize to be able to transition into this part of the process or going. So now that I've not only built rapport, but I've also reestablished the value, I then go into now, Brian, I know I mentioned that I specialized in helping employers provide valuable benefits to their employees while creating a tax savings for the company at absolutely no cost to the business. But at the time, your main concern was ... whatever that objection might have been, and you had mentioned that your employees wouldn't be interested. And after giving it some thought, I completely understand you feeling that way. As a matter of fact, I've had other clients of mine that I have now feel the same way. But let me ask you this. If you were to find that even one of your employees did have interest, would you be willing to take a look at the ways that we can help them and their families? Right? These are the transitions that make this possible, right? So I can give you all the steps all day long, but the transitions are going to be the essential piece to keeping this all flow. All right. And then, of course, the scripted rebuttals is super big, right? Again, you can try to improvise all you want, but the challenging thing about improvising your way is that it does take a lot of energy to improvise a script. It's not recommended. Again, it's a little defeating, but when you use the scripts, it's proven, it's duplicable. It's one of those things you don't have to use a lot of energy to do, and it's ready to use. Okay. So number 4, tie downs, baby. Let's go. Tie downs are what's going to help you get what you're looking for, right? This is where you ask for the next step. So you got to make sure that that's part of your process. You got to make sure that you're using scripted tie downs. Okay. Is now a good time? And we step into your office and you do not get unless you ASK, right? You do not GET unless you ASK. So you've got to ask for that next step. All right, I know I got 10 minutes left on the clock, so we're going to keep moving forward here. Now, step number 5, addressing the concern that they had, again, brings out the real objection on the second visit. So by making sure that when you deliver the 5-step follow-up, you address the concern on step number 3, you're going to get the real objection to pop out on step 5. So what that's going to look like, and these are going to be a few scenarios. There's multiple scenarios you can use this for, but the main few is number one, the decision maker has heard our 30-second commercial but was not converted at the time. The second one is that the decision maker was presented to but not closed. And then the third one is that the account was closed, but the enrollment needs to be rescheduled or solidified. All right. So these are three key opportunities that we can use the 5-step follow-up to make something happen. So the first, of course, opportunity is where, again, 70% or 67% of the time we're not converting DMs. So by utilizing these 5 steps, you're going to be able to have that structure on how to follow up with them, right? So here's what it would sound like on a business owner that said, I've talked to Brian, which is a business owner, and he did tell me that his employee or that he wasn't interested, right? So when I go back in at a second time, I'm going to say, hey, Brian, it's good to see you, my man. How you been? Awesome. What's new and good? Great to hear, my man. That's awesome. Well, listen, I know the last time we had the opportunity to connect when I came back in last, I did let you know that I specialized in helping employers like yourself provide some unique, valuable benefits to their employees while creating a tax savings for the company at absolutely no cost to the business. But you did say that, of course, at the time you weren't interested, and I completely understand you feeling that way, having just met me then. But after giving it some thought, I really believe that if you had a few minutes just to take a look at the ways that I've been able to help other employers in the area just like you at no cost to them, you would really see the benefit. Is now a good time? And then, of course, Brian in this case would say, number one, he would look at me at this point and say, man, this guy shows a lot of credibility. I respect him for coming in. It shows that he believes in what he does. So he's really going to give me the real objection at that point. Man, we've tried doing this before and it just didn't fit. John, Brian, I completely understand you feeling that way. Of course, I've had other clients who have had similar experiences before doing business with me personally. Service is a big part of any benefit program, and it's certainly something that I take a lot of pride in. It only takes a few minutes to show you how we stand out from the rest. Is now a good time, my man? Can we step into your office? Awesome, right? So that's how I was able to handle a walk-in that I did a few days ago or a few weeks ago that wasn't interested, and I came back in. I not only built rapport, I reestablished the value by reiterating the 30-second commercial. I handled the main objection, or the previous objection, which was I'm not interested. I tied it down. And then, of course, that's where the real objection came about. And it wasn't that he wasn't interested. It's just that he just had a bad experience or he already tried this before. And again, it opened up another avenue for me to provide a conversion at that point in time. So super, super important there. The next one is the decision maker was presented to but not closed. This one's pretty cool, okay? This one it's unique because a couple of things change on this one. The report's still going to be the same. You're still going to reestablish the value. You're still going to isolate and handle the previous objection, but the tie down is going to be a little different. So whenever you've presented to a business, your tie down has to be somewhat of your closing statement, right? Your closing statement is your tie down. You've got them in the lobby. So, Brian, good to see you, my man. Awesome. I know the weekend, we just got out of it, man. What'd you do over the weekend? Great to hear, man. Well, listen, I wanted to come back in and reconnect with you because you and I had a great session. We sat down and we touched on a couple of the highlighted points. We even talked about our group term 65 that you had a lot of interest in that piece. But your main concern that you had was that you didn't have time to take the employees out of production for the time that it took to meet with us. And really, after giving it some hard thought, man, I really had just a couple of questions that are super important for you to answer, my man. And the first question I had for you was, if you were to find that even one of your employees was to be struck with an accident, illness, or even a death, chances are you'd want to help them, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, a few minutes once a year with each employee, I'm sure you would agree wouldn't affect your business in a negative way, right? Well, let's do this. Like I mentioned earlier, all I'm asking is for those employees that want to participate is that you allow them to do so through payroll deduction. That way you and the employee can save on those valuable tax dollars. All I need is a couple of autographs or authorizations to get the pre-approval process started, my man. May we step into your office real quick? Awesome, right? So now we're going, and then he's going to bring up the real objection. He's going to say, well, it's just a number of things, but then we handle it at that point in time. But the key here is that my follow-up on a presentation that was given that wasn't closed has more substance behind it. We built rapport. We reestablished the value on what happened at the presentation. There were a couple of policies that they had a lot of interest in. The objection in this particular scenario was that they didn't have the time to pull the employees out of production for the time that it took to meet with me. So I handled that. I tied it down, and then I tied it down with my closing statement. That was the only adjustment. I'm going in. I just need a couple of authorizations to get the pre-approval process started. May we step into your office? And then from there, they're either going to give you, number one, the real objection, or because of the credibility, the confidence, and the conviction that you demonstrated because of the follow-up that you had, they're more likely to give you the opportunity to sit down and go over the next steps with them. Or it could turn into an opportunity that they may want to do in the coming weeks or in another time of the year. But again, at the end of the day, it's that you're working this with structure that makes the biggest difference. Now, this one is awesome, right? We all have these accounts that we've closed that had zero, that we had a schedule, they probably got rescheduled, or we need to get them re-solidified. The same thing applies to this. So you're going to go back in and Brian, it's good to see you, my man. What have you been up to? Awesome. I know you're working on a new project down the way. When is it going to be done? No kidding. Awesome, man. Well, I hope everything goes smooth for you. Well, listen, I wanted to come back in and reconnect because I know that we had an opportunity to sit down and a lot of things went great. We even had the next steps already lined in for the enrollment to take place. The only challenge that we faced was that you had some of the guys that called in sick, and so that really veered us off the path. And so the good news is I've got a couple of dates already ready for you, man. It only takes a few minutes to get this thing reset or rescheduled. May we step into your office, right? There you go. That is the substance or the approach that is confident, it's convicting, it pushes the process forward, but you have to get that role play in place to move the needle in this area. You already have everything you need. You've got the account number, the dates have already been set. There's just been some, or you've got some accounts that possibly have, some things that happen in business, right? But just knowing that you have a way to go back in and approach it with confidence is what we're looking to train you on today. So a couple of best practices I want to leave you with, because I know we've got a couple of minutes left on the clock. First and foremost, always be collecting referral letters. And I say this because on my 5-step follow-up, I like to use referral letters as new information, okay? Because here's the deal, team. And if for those of you that have notes or writing something to write with, write this down. Our goal is not to argue with, or our goal is not to change the mind of the business owner, okay? Our goal is not to change the mind of the business owner. Our goal is to provide them with new information to make a new decision. Think about that for a moment, right? Because when's the last time a business owner went to you and said, you know what? Oh, Gabriel, I was wrong. I should have signed when you had first presented to me. I mean, that's just never going to happen, right? But the goal here is that you provided them with new information. So what I normally did on my 4th or 5th follow-up, and we're trying to move the needle and get that emotional decision to be made, I always provided referral letters as a way to get them more credibility and to emotionally be convicted by what I've been able to do in the community. So super, super important. Lots of great things to add to your portfolios. I know we're collecting a lot of referrals, but it's another thing to collect referral letters to utilize them on your follow-up strategy. The other thing is, just like I said, make sure you're logging everything correctly and accurately in Epic. This is going to give you a good way of knowing how to approach each lead, how to approach each opportunity, and that way you can prepare at a higher level to create that conversion you're looking for in those areas. The one and most important thing that I hope that you do, everything we provided to you on this call is a guide, okay? It's been proven. However, it's self-administered. You have to do it. It's got to be put into practice. And so role-playing the 5-step follow-up with the integrated scenarios that we talked about is going to help you get that sharp edge that you need going into your marketplace and making a difference in the pipelines that you currently are working. I promise you. So make sure you've got and all you need is 15 minutes. 15 minutes a day can save you 15% or more on car. I'm just kidding. But 15 minutes is all you need to get that skill set developed. I promise you, 15 minutes 4 times a day, that's already an hour a week minimum. But you're working on your craft. And then lastly, be sure to build solid routes. Make sure you're using all your layers, right? Presentation's not closed. Make sure you've got your hot, warm leads in there. You could even throw in a few that are still follow-ups that are still on the fence about things. I love, and here's something I will tell you, and I'm going to end it at a couple of things, but I appreciate your time, is those uncomfortable scenarios, right? We talked about this on the Friday call last week, is do the hard thing first. The more you expose yourself to these challenging moments in your career, the better that muscle memory starts to kick in. You start to become more effective, more efficient. So much you become smoother at how you deliver. And so make sure you're building solid routes using your layers to know where you're going to be calculating your next approach and prepare for it. So the last thing I want to provide you guys with is some solid words of wisdom, guys, and that's the word craving. Okay. And why this is important is because, for many times in my life when I craved something, when I craved it, it was a powerful desire for me to go and get something, whether it was a house, a car, a lifestyle, or I wanted to see legacy happen. My action started really kicking in and aligning. So what I want to do is I want to challenge you this week. I want to challenge you this week to crave success. I want you to crave it and do it by getting the routes built, role playing your 5-step follow-up, doing the things that are small and stacking those small wins to get what you're looking for. And I'll end it by saying this. You don't have to love the hard work. You just must crave the results so intensely that the work becomes irrelevant. Guys, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I hope this brought you so much value. I look forward to seeing you on the Thursday call to be able to recap some of these wins that you're getting with the 5-step follow-up. Thank you, everybody.